Hey everybody, it's Cheryl Lawson here with the fabulous Becky McCray. Say hi, Becky.
Hello, Cheryl. Hello, everybody.
So, it's raining here in Tulsa. I don't know what the weather is like in Alva, but we've had some really wonderful weather here lately.
No, we're not getting any of your rain, dang it, and we're real dry, so we could use it. We're real gun shy around here. We're just constantly afraid we're going to go right back into drought. We don't want to go.
Don't want to have too much rain. Don't want to have. It's been dry and windy here, so we're the rain's not heavy, but it's a good day. So a little gloomy day, but we're here to brighten things, brighten up your day, at least in Tulsa. So, you know what? Let's first talk a little bit about the idea to do the Get Your Speak On, improving your professional speaking outlook. Can we talk a little bit about how that came about?
Yeah. Why on earth are we doing this? This is a great question. This is a great question. And we are doing it because Cheryl and I, you and I, we both speak. We do speeches and go do presentations all over, lots of places. And SMTULSA turns out to be one of those places that a lot of speakers are they're emerging speakers. These are some of their first gigs, or they've not gone lots of places and done lots of speeches. And so they're developing and they're getting to be better and they're having wonderful fun with this the SMTULSA audience is a wonderful audience to speak to anyway. And even as far as like high school and things, I had a lot of training in speech and communications that all carried forward through college and then into professional work where I had more training in speaking and communications. And then since then, I do a lot of speaking. It seems like I do a lot of speaking. And I find myself going to SMTULSA and I see someone speaking. And then I always want to rush up to them afterwards and go, all right, here's 3 things that you should know. 1, you did a great job with this. And this was a great idea. And here's something you can improve. Now, this is okay, but it's, a little guerrilla, a little in your face, a little much, I think, for some folks. But Cheryl, we've talked about it several times before this, that, maybe we should do a little workshop and help people to improve their skills, not necessarily they're speaking this year or that they're getting ready to speak tomorrow, but just there's a lot of people in SMTULSA who do speaking as part of their work, who would like to do more speaking, like to get paid better for their speaking, would like to reach some of those gigs that they'd like to have. So there's a lot of people developing as speakers. So we decided to get together and get your speak on.
Yeah. So see, now Becky even told you that even after somebody's talk, Becky will come up to you and give you here's 3 things that you can do better, or here's what you did great and here's where you can improve, whether you ask for it or not. But it's I think it's great, and I don't know anybody who is like get out of my face with advice on how I can be better, but but it's a thing, and I do think it having this separate deal for potential speakers or people who just want to get better. I mean, I find myself speaking. One of the challenges I always have at my own conference is not putting myself on the agenda anymore. But I do get asked. Like I just got asked yesterday to speak in front of a group of nonprofit folks on March 10th. So, I let her know I was in full conference mode and that I might look a little frazzled, but I'd be happy to come and talk to them. But these are the things and the opportunities that come up a lot locally, as well as kind of national conferences that people will come up, will encounter. But you're right. I think our group, everybody who sits in that audience, I think, has aspirations to someday be on the proverbial stage, even though we don't really use the stage. But everybody thinks, hey, I can do this. I have something to share, and it's become sort of what SMTULSA, one of the things we're about is kind of growing and developing local talent and even talent coming in from other places who, are great speakers and have wonderful content, but just don't get out as much and aren't as exposed to other event organizers as they probably should be. And so we're lucky that we get some of these people early on in their careers. But so I think this is a great thing. It's the day before the conference, so whether you're speaking or not, you can still attend. And I really appreciate you doing this, because I think you're the perfect person, especially for people who have been to our conference every year and you've been a part of it. You already have your resume.
They've heard me talk. I've talked before. I think that one of the great things about SMTULSA is all the speakers, the people who come and speak routinely are the people who are doing this kind of work in the field. They're the people who actually are doing this. And I'm getting a terrible echo back to myself here.
Let me turn my volume down. Let's try that.
Okay. There's still a little echo, but I don't think it's as bad.
Okay.
The people who come to SMTULSA are the people who do the work. They're the people out in the field who are doing the social tools, using it everywhere they go. And for that reason, it's easier for people sitting in the audience to go, I could also be a speaker here. Mm-hmm. I use these tools. I could talk about it. And there are lots of places, lots of opportunities, lots of people who need to hear what you do, because there's too many speakers who don't actually do the thing they're talking about, that they're on the platform all the time. They are on the road all year long, and they have lost touch with the important things that are going on in the world. So I think that it's really great for the fact that you can aspire, you can see yourself in the SMTULSA speakers, and you are needed. You are needed to go forth and share these messages with other people.
Absolutely. Because you're in the trenches, we need to hear from you. And, I was talking to somebody yesterday who was considering coming to the conference, and, she says, I really need to focus more on these things. And I kind of confessed to her that, this is the reason I bring this conference to Tulsa and I spend so much energy, because when you're in the trenches, it's sometimes difficult to see the forest for the trees that are knocking you in the face. It's great to just share what kind of get it out of here and start to share. But it's also good to listen to how other people are using maybe some of the same tools or even different tools. And then also to see how, from a speaker's point of view, to see how people are presenting what they know. And I think this year, for sure, we have some really unique speakers who are going to turn the tables on what we expect to see from the stage. So I'm really excited about that too.
I always look forward to the SMTULSA speakers for a couple of reasons. One, I know that they will be practical people who are using these things right now. Another is that SMTULSA always has different speakers that are different from what you expect. We could have the polished, super international people who do nothing but speak about this. Or we can have the people who actually use these tools and who are still connected with the practical and are not the same usual suspects. Mm-hmm. When I was attending national conferences on social topics, you would be like, oh yeah, I heard this guy 3 months ago at the other conference, and he's doing the same talk. Isn't that great? Okay, I've already heard that talk. I need to hear something else. So SMTULSA is never the regurgitate your standard speech that you've been using all over. And the other thing is the way you build SMTULSA is good for speakers and good for people who want to be speakers, because it's a cutting edge conference in the way that it's organized and the way that the speakers in the audience interact. You don't just stand up and deliver your talk. Here's my talk. Take it. Instead, the audience is participating. It is far more interactive. The entire design of the room practically forces interaction on all of us. I hear this a lot from the other conferences that I'm attending and speaking at, is that they want more interaction. They are trying to build this, and they're trying to slowly coax their speakers into doing it. You set up the room. It's too late. You're going to do it. And so it's a great place to have come from as an audience member moving up to being a speaker. You're prepared for the kind of conference experience you're going to be expected to provide at other places and at other times.
Right. And I think that really will be kind of the key for becoming a professional speaker, the Get Your Speak On session, because we have this experience of the connectivity and the connected audience. And not every place you speak will people be as vocal, as socially engaged. At SMTULSA, people are more than willing to stand up and either give their point of view of what you're talking about, or have a question where you didn't think a question was supposed to come into. And very similar to, years ago when I talked about Twitter, and, kind of in the middle of my talk, somebody said, "What's a hashtag?" And so, as the presenter, one, shame on me for not giving that in the beginning, but I had to be flexible enough to say, okay, back up. I've talked about something that somebody in this audience doesn't know about. And so you have to be able to be flexible, particularly in our group with our audience. You have to be able to respond to what the audience needs from you, from a presenter. And I don't know that any other presenter would have, okay, step off the stage, go to the computer, let's talk hashtags for a few minutes, and then go back to the prepared speech. So, and I think that's one of the things that makes our conference much different than some other conference, and I'm really proud that you guys kind of made it that way. I like to say I do a lot of the genetically engineering part in the beginning, but once it starts, it becomes what it needs to become for the people who are there, the speakers and the attendees. So
I love that. It becomes what it needs to become for the people in the room. Isn't that great? Isn't that the way we'd like to have all our experiences and conferences and learning happen, is that we all come together, and then it becomes what we need it to become as we make it together.
Right.
As SMTULSA audience is also very connected online and will not hesitate to get on Twitter and tell you everything you needed to know about your talk, which is, one, they'll tell you when you're wrong. They'll tell you when you're right. They'll really retweet and resonate on items that really connected with them. And that is, as a speaker, so valuable to know, okay, that line really landed well with people. They understood that, or they didn't understand that. And you watch for the audience, and you watch for those kind of clues. SMTULSA people will spell it out and tweet it for you. Okay, it's not just a look that presses across their face of the audience. It's an expressed thought that goes out on Twitter that you can save for later, learn from, and expand in the way that you do your talk and ideas you work with later.
Right, because you start to find out in your, and we're going to be talking about practice here in a second, but
yeah.
But this kind of goes into preparing for your speech. I know David Welch last year did a really good job of kind of stopping in points in his talk to say, tweet this. But, here, tweet this. But in many instances, you don't know what you say, which thing that you say will resonate with people. I know I always start my opening with, please don't turn off your cell phones. And that's like the most tweeted thing I ever say, because people are so used to being told to turn everything off, pay attention, and don't move. And, we're completely doing the opposite of what people are used to doing when they attend a conference. So I think that goes into, and I know you're going to talk about this at the event on March 30th, is when you're preparing for your presentation, think about, one, your audience, and instead of thinking about who they are, in addition to maybe thinking about who they are, think about where you want them to go, right? Where do you want them to go? Yay, I said something right.
And isn't that how we all feel? Like, we used to do the big Twitter wall when anybody was talking, and you would see, it'd be kind of slow, and you'd say something good, and it'd go as something good would go scrolling off screen and be like, I did a good one there. They liked it. Yes, you have to take the audience from where they start to a place when they finish. What changed because you gave this talk?
Right.
What changed in the audience? What changed in the world because you took the time to sit with these people and talk? And so that comes back to the, it becomes what we need it to become as we create this event together. And part of what you are doing is helping that audience to become somebody new. They have learned a new skill. They've picked a new insight. You've changed their mind about something. You've made them aware of something they didn't know about before. Something has to change.
Right. And I mean, I get to see from my vantage point, all of the tweets in real time and especially after the fact. I mean, most of the stuff I see after the fact, but but it is great to go back and look at, even during each of the sessions or the breakout sessions and see the tweets that are coming out of the room. Even if you've heard that talk before or you've seen that speaker, this audience this year is going to react completely different from how they reacted the last time they heard something on this particular topic. So
because they're different people. The audience is always different. It's made up of different people, and they come from different places. And so while there's a lot of the same people in the room that you're used to that maybe have heard you speak before, there are a lot of people that are new. And so it's never the same audience twice.
Right. So, okay, so let's do the commercial first for the event.
That was it. We just did it. That was the commercial for the event.
Okay. So you have to come to this thing. It's March 30th on Wednesday. And I will put the link in the comments here. But if you just go to getYourSpeakOn.com, you'll go directly to the page where the event lives. And you can register. There's still seats open. And I'd love to fill the house with people who want to learn more about becoming a professional speaker. Okay, so let's go on to the subject of the day. Oh, one more thing. If you are watching live, or even if you watch the recorded version, if you'd like to ask a question of Becky or myself, please feel free to hit the little Q&A button down there at the bottom and ask your question, and we'll get to it while we're talking. So, and the event starts at 11 a.m. on the 30th and goes to 2:30. So, okay, commercial over.
And it will be very interactive, I guess. To lengthen the commercial just a little bit more, it will become what we need it to become. Right. It will be very interactive and based on what you need. That what people come into the room and say, all right, here's the question I have. It wasn't on the agenda, but I want to talk about getting more gigs. Or it wasn't on the agenda, but I was wanting to ask. Or can you expand more on this idea that's on the agenda? That's how we're going to do it. It's going to all be tailored to those people in the room. We're not going to let it also get very big. It's not a very big room. And the ability to make it that custom is limited. So we're not going to take, I know there's a limit. I can't remember what the exact hard limit is, but we have a hard limit on how many we're going to take. So if you're wanting in, you do want to get in soon so that you get a space.
Yes. And you're able to ask questions ahead of time and be really social with what you need to get out of it. I know we've said this 2 or 3 times already, but that really is the basis for SMTULSA conference. And that will be for this as well. It's make sure that you get what you need out of it, and we'll make it happen. So, okay, so let's talk about practice. Practice.
Yes, I did not practice
Carnegie Hall. Practice. So, you've spent a week or two deciding what you want to talk about, getting your outline together, hiring somebody to professionally put your slide deck together. I don't know if anybody does that, but maybe you've hired somebody to create this wonderfully graphic, and you found all of the wonderful images for your presentation, and you've got, I don't know, how far in advance do you start practicing your talk?
I start long before it ever goes to that mythical professional person who's going to make it look real polished. If there was such a person in my life that was supposed to make my presentations look a lot better, I would rehearse long before I send it to them.
Okay.
I would create it with draft graphics so that I could practice it, because the purpose of practicing is not just for you to learn how to present it well, but also to improve the final product. So although my list says first get one great speech, but that doesn't stop it. You have to actually take the time to present that like you would to an audience. And maybe even to a test audience. If it's a large and important presentation, present it to a test audience, refine, improve, change the wording, rearrange, and you're going to do all of that long before you get to the point of saying it's final and this is done. So the rehearsal actually starts during the process of creating the talk.
Mm-hmm. I like to think of it like you hear stand-up comedians talk, where they go and they'll test out a joke and they'll kind of throw a new joke into the mix and see the reaction that they get. It's very similar to that theory, that you want to either try it out in a video format, maybe, if you already have a community or you have some people or supporters who can listen to you talk about it and give their feedback. That's a great idea. Or if you have some local presentations, like the local nonprofit or some events that you're speaking in, to maybe test out the material and really ask for feedback. And do you ask for feedback when you're doing testing, or do you just kind of feel it internally how you're doing?
At this point, I do feel it mostly internally, but I'm constantly testing material like a stand-up would, in that I'm testing pieces and bits. Not just when I talk, but also I'm testing pieces in my writing to see what wording and phrases land well when I put them into my newsletter, when I put them into blog posts, and when you tweet. It's really great to take a line that you think is going to really hit people and really resonate, throw that on Twitter. And if it goes nowhere, it may, can you tweak it? Can you work on it? And it depends, of course, on your audience, but just use the tools you have available. There's no law that says you can't get on a Hangout or a Blab or a Periscope and just share your talk with anyone who will wander in, just as a matter of practicing it so that you know that you have an audience.
Mm-hmm. That's a great idea. That really is a good idea. I'm sorry to cut you off, but Blab, I've been kind of obsessed with watching Periscopes and Blabs. I haven't probably done as much as I probably should or would like to personally, but I love watching people and how they're using these tools to either flesh out kind of what they're doing or even to share their knowledge with people in a very casual setting, because again, that goes back to, this would be perfect for SMTULSA because we don't necessarily need you to be polished and perfected. We need you to know your stuff and be willing to share and engage. So I think practicing on those platforms are really great ideas.
And you don't have to say, I'm going to practice my speech now. Deb Brown and I do a weekly blab now. We've done one, so I'll say it's weekly, but it's going to be weekly, that we share 5 news stories that relate to the topic we work on together, which is small towns business, small town revitalization. So we share those 5 stories and we offer commentary on why we think they're important. That commentary is always rooted in our core concepts that we're teaching people. And so each time we relate a news story and offer commentary, we are testing out wording that is going to appear in speeches at some point. It's going to appear in blog posts. So we're using that live medium to test and refine material, even though we don't say, we will now present the 1-hour talk that we are going to be using when we go to North Dakota for the Community Connect Forum.
Right.
Instead we say, here's the news story, here's the implication, and it's rooted in our concepts. So we're testing the wording as we go.
Yeah, and you can take that after the fact and share that across your other social networks and get reaction and feedback and see the things that will resonate. So I really like, from a practice standpoint, because many of the times when I come off the stage, I tell people I have no idea what I just said, because it's so.
I've heard you say that. I have heard you say that.
I said it at 140 conference. I say, because it has become so much a part of me. By the time I'm giving the presentation, I have transcended the Cheryl's on stage doing a talk, and it has just become, I need you to hear this message, and we need to talk about this, right? It becomes this conversation. It becomes, what do you think about this particular topic, or how has this affected you? And I really get into I think, and that's because I've practiced it and I've lived it while I'm building it. And like you said, kind of before you send it off to the final, I need it to look polished and I want the right pictures. I've lived this presentation so many times that it doesn't feel like a presentation.
Right. And that's the key. That's the key. You cannot just stand up on stage and expect to transcend the moment and become what you need to become if you didn't get ready and then practice and live the material. You don't see actors walk onto stage having just glanced at the script before they went out. That's called improvisation. It's a whole different sort of thing, but it doesn't have the kind of emotional impact that a prepared stage play will have. Now, I'm not saying you have to script every word, but you do want to get it on paper. I'm a big believer of getting your stuff on paper. I have gone back and forth on this. That I've used my iPad before as my preparation tool. I like it on paper better, and there's a good reason for this. So if you have prepared it in PowerPoint or Keynote, print out those notes pages so that you get it on paper. And the first thing that I do with it after I get it on paper is I sit at my desk and I read it through. Like, I have actually written in the notes what I think I'm going to say in actual sentences. I will never give it in exactly those words, but what I'm doing is trying to capture some of those phrases. It's all rooted in our core concepts that we teach. You need to bring those things that you've been testing, those phrases you've learned other places, things you've been working and developing. You want to put that out. I actually put it out right below the slide so that I have some good words and I've thought about how it's going to be said. Because you can't deliver it fluidly if you've never thought it through fluidly. So I actually write it out, and then I get that thing on paper and sit at my desk with a pen and my paper, and I read through it at my desk. And I always find myself making changes. So I mark up that copy and I do it at my desk so I can make changes right there. Even though I go through this material and I speak a lot, I find myself making changes just as soon as I've created it. So I go back and get those on the electronic copy. And then I do a version where I guess I should stop right there and see if you have anything to say about that. Because
I think that's great. I think the fact that you stress that you write it down or print it out and have a paper copy is really important. I do that with a lot of things. I wish you could see, and then I wish you couldn't see my desk at this point, which is actually the kitchen table, and there is paper everywhere. I recycle, by the way, but I'd like to see things on paper, and not, whether it's a task list or topics that I think would be important. In the email that I just got the other day, I printed the email out because it included the topics that they wanted covered, so that I can, see it and make notes as things happen. Very similar to how you do your blab. As things happen, either on the social web or in the news, that I can then relate to the topics that they're interested in or that their audience is interested in. So that then again, it doesn't feel like I went and Googled the topic the day before and then started talking about it, which, hey, if you can do that, more power to you. But I think having the paper is, it seems kind of old fashioned, but hey, call me old fashioned. I like to write things down too. So
there is a very strong tendency, especially in the social tools world, in the social media world, to say, I know this so well, I'll just wing it and it'll be fine. I could just, I'll just Google the last little few things and I'll just do my thing. And I tell you what, nothing made a bigger difference in my professionalism as a speaker, the rewards that I received financially as a speaker, and the number of high quality places I was invited to speak, as giving up the bad habit of winging it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was pretty good.
Yeah.
I could wing it and look really good. I could. What I found was it wasn't as good as I could be. I could be a lot better. Mm-hmm. If I would prepare.
Yeah, because if you know it and you live it and you do it every day, sure. If somebody asks you on the street, hey, what do you do? What do you think about small towns in America and will they survive? You can absolutely have that conversation for an hour or 2 hours or however long the people are willing to listen to that conversation. But it's different from when you have people in front of you who are expecting takeaways, expecting certain things from you, and not just brain dump for an hour.
There's a difference of having one conversation with one person where you can completely customize everything you say to carrying the conversation forward. As there's ebb and flow, they ask you questions, you can move along in a very tailored way. When you have 10 people, 100 people, 1,000 people, you have to change the way you do that presentation. You have to think through all those permutations in advance. You have to be the one who's prepared. They are each going to receive the information from where they are, and it's up to you to think about that in advance so that what you bring is the best possible way that you can have the right things at your disposal to adapt to that audience and present it. So that's not saying it's canned, that it's word for word, that it never changes. I started this by saying we have to be very interactive and that we interact with the audience. And if they say, what's a hashtag, you stop and you deal with what's a hashtag. Mm-hmm. And that may influence the way you take the rest of your presentation. Maybe you just learned something about the level of your audience right there, but it's your preparation that allows you to handle those things. So yes, write it out, actually write it out. Get it on paper, do the read through at the desk. Then I do a read through out loud. Now this is the part where you look stupid because you're like in your living room with your paper and you're reading it.
Your cats and dogs as your audience.
To the cats and dogs and throw pillows on the sofa, who are universally not a very enthusiastic audience. So I do it out loud because you will find words that you cannot say out loud. Like you will stumble over stuff and you'll go, that is a stumble point. Take the pen, fix it now, make the change on that so that you can look for, anticipate, and eliminate as many of the possible problems before you get there as possible, because you don't want to be finding those things by delivering it to the live audience. That's not doing anybody any favors. Just take the problems out before you get there. And that's why you do the read through out loud to the throw pillows and the cats and dogs.
And for me, good thing we're not talking about the Oklahoma City Thunder, because I cannot say Russell Westbrook in the cadence of a talk. You see how I had to really slow that down?
I would chop it. Like if there's a name like that, just chop it and then say, Mr. Westbrook,
exactly.
Cut it out.
I just have to, hey, stand up and introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, because I find when I do that, the live practice, because who knew I couldn't say this dude's name, but you do have to do that. Because there are things that come up and you're like, why is this so hard for me?
Well, and it's easy to put something in there and it just sounds awkward when you say it because you've got the words kind of out of order. And it looked great on paper. It was fine. But you just need to rearrange it a little bit. It's going to flow much more smoothly. That's why we practice it. And that's why we practice it out loud. So, now you're going to take that paper back that you have just made all those changes on. Back to the computer we go. Type those into the presentation, and if you need to, and reprint it. Now, the reason you have to get those off of the paper and into the computer is you will give this talk again later. At least, you'll use parts of it again. This is part of becoming a professional, is having talks that are prepared and ready to work with, that you customize and make fit in places that you work with as your standard beginning point. They're not the ending point. But you're going to reuse this material. So always presume it'll be used again. Get the notes updated in the computer.
I will tell you one of the challenges, because in SMTULSA we have a call for speakers. Most of the speakers come to us because they have submitted to us. Others have been recommended by other speakers like yourself and people who have been to the conference before. But for the most part, people are submitting to speak. And I think that's a general practice for many conferences and different events, is that they ask the speakers to present. And what I found, particularly this year, we had a lot of new speakers submit. And the challenge was, what are you speaking about? Right? Tell me what, because I got a lot of, well, I can talk about this and I can talk about that and I can talk about this. And, you know, really what I'm looking for is what's the title of your talk and what's the description of your talk, and then give me 2 or 3 or 5 things that people will walk away with. And as the organizer, you need to have at least 2 or 3 of those if you're going to be speaking on multiple topics. If you're only going to be talking about one topic, maybe 1 or 2, you can maybe expand on that, but really have your topics fleshed out.
Yeah, start with one. You know, pick one topic that you have either done in the past or that you really wish somebody would ask you to do. Like this would be, if there was only one thing I'd get to talk about, this would be the thing. Start with that one. Write up that topic. And the easiest way to get a description and a title is to have the talk. And then you can customize that description and title. And you'll know what those takeaways are, because you'll look at it and go, well, look, I told them this and they learned that, and I made sure they were aware of this tool. So there's the takeaways. I told them this and that and this tool. Those are my 3 takeaways. So, you know, takeaways are not a mysterious, like, educational tool that have to be structured in special language. It's just like, what did people learn? What did you teach them right there? So they will be able to identify something. They'll be able to list something they have an awareness of, or learned to use, or, you know, what did they learn as a part of your talk? Those are your takeaways. That description and title are going to get customized for everybody, but you write it for yourself the best way you can think of to write it. And there's a little secret here, which is the title that you're going to write that's going to go into the publication of the organization, that's going to, like, go on the agenda. That title and description is marketing speak. And so you're going to copyright that, as in you're going to do the copywriting. You're going to write that copy like it matters, like it's the only way you'll ever get a chance to sell your topic, because guess what? It's the only way you get a chance to sell your topic is that copy you wrote that was your title and your description. Every word of it needs to make them be interested enough to read the next word. Mine often starts with, like, a question of telling you exactly who this talk is for. I'm frequently, as a small town and rural speaker, I'm frequently one of the only small town or rural speakers at an event with a general focus. And so mine will start with saying, are you from a small town? And people are like, well, yes, I am. Or they're like, no, I'm not. In which case, that's okay. They can go right on down the agenda and find the other talks that are for them. So, you know, I like to fly a little flag in my talks that leads them into whether they're interested. So copywriting those is essential. The other secret is you have to have a version of the type of your topic that is the one that makes sense to the event organizer. So while I might say, call my workshop on speaking, Get Your Speak On, this would not be how I would describe it to Cheryl when pitching the idea. I would not say, I'm going to do a Get Your Speak On. She'd be like, you're weird, and I don't know who you are and why you're talking to me. But if I start by saying, Cheryl, you have a lot of aspiring speakers in your audience, and it's your members, we could do a workshop that would help them to improve their speaking skills. That's my topic. The title turns out to be Get Your Speak On.
And that's because that's the title of the email that I would send out to speakers before the conference. Are you ready to get your speak on? So it resonated with me right away, and I actually love that. And who knew that GetYourSpeakOn.com would be available? So this is the beginning, hopefully, of more of these. And I will tell you, when you mentioned this to me at the conference last year, I was thinking, there's no way, I don't have the bandwidth.
In fact, we talked about it a couple of times after a couple of conferences. I know that we did.
I don't have the bandwidth. We can't do it. And And really, again, letting the conference and the community become what it will become. SMTULSA has become the place where people want to get on the stage and speak. And so it was a natural thing that needed to happen. And I thank you for recognizing it, and the fate gods that just kept slamming my head and keeping the idea going so that it didn't go away. So what were we talking about? I just forgot.
We are in the process. We have prepared our presentation in whatever software we're using. We filled out, actually wrote the wording that we're going to use that goes with each visual or slide. And then we have printed that out. And then we have done the run through at the desk, made changes. We have done the standing. Standing is important because it changes how you speak. And so we've done the standing run through in front of the dogs, cats, and throw pillows. And that was out loud. And now we've gone back to the computer. We've made our changes. We've printed again. This is, turn the pages over. You don't have to start with new paper, but, you want it on paper again. You want to read that thing out loud again, because now you're going to catch some other stuff. In fixing something, you mess something else up. Mm-hmm. So that's what I do. I really do take each talk out loud at least twice. If there's any way on earth that I can make that happen, I always do that. It gives me a chance to catch the mess ups before they become a big deal. And so I then, before I'm even going to the event, like in the week leading up to going somewhere, I'm reading that thing through on paper, not necessarily out loud, but now I'm reading it through on paper to myself repeatedly during that week. I like to read it out loud at least twice before I get on the plane and fly. And I do use that time on the plane because I have it on paper. Then I have a chance, no matter how cramped your seat is or how tiny of a room you have on that seat back tray table, you can take that piece of paper, that stack of papers, and go through your talk right there and read each word. It's all written out for you. You don't have to do it out loud to the annoyance of everybody sitting near you, but you do have a chance to work through it in your head and to hear it in your head. If you've done it out loud at least twice, you'll hear those words in your head as you read them. And that's what you're wanting to do, is get your brain used to those words, so that hopefully by the time you get to do the presentation, some of those words come back to you naturally and they come off of your tongue in a much more natural manner than if you're just going, oh yeah, this photo, I was going to tell a story on this that was like that thing. You guys know that thing. Wow. It's so much better if the words can flow because you've already written it and you've done this work to get the words into your head.
Do you find that practicing out loud at least twice and having it on paper eliminates the uhs and the likes and the things that we all, when we hear ourselves back, go, oh my gosh, why did I say so many times? Or where did I start doing this little idiosyncrasy? Do you think practicing it out loud a few times helps to eliminate the awkward pauses that make us put in those filler, irritating words that we all do?
It does. It's the preparation that allows you to have some words at your disposal. When you know what the words are that you're going to say, you don't find yourself going, and leaving it for a terrible long time. And even none of us like to leave it for even a short time. We have ums and uhs and ah and like and as he said and other phrases we fall back on that reflect the fact that we don't know what we're going to say. Mm-hmm. So having those words at our disposal makes it so much easier to sound fluid and natural. Because as we have a conversation, you and I, it's so much easier to just naturally let those words flow and not worry about the jumble or the pause or this or that. But with a group, you're trying to deliver that message in a way that everyone can receive it. You want to get as many barriers out of the way as you can. And those ums and ahs and distracting things. I think it also helps with gestures. So I have noticed that there's a very strong tendency when you don't know what you're going to say that you do stupid things like this, and you're rubbing your face, and you're trying to fiddle with things, and you're nervously fidgeting with stuff because you're not sure what the words are. Mm-hmm. When you know what the words are, it's that much easier to just let them out, to get out of your own way and let those words come on out and share them with the audience, than it is when you are tensely wondering if you're going to blow it because you're not sure that you can remember which story that photo went with. Let's see. You ever stared at your own slides and gone,
what was I going to say here?
Not sure what this one was for. It's a picture of my dog. I don't really know. Next slide. Okay.
Right. So next question. And these are, I'm trying to get kind of some tips that people can use that we're, you know, when you're, why practicing really helps. And I think it certainly helps me. Do you think that, again, practicing out loud, having it written down, getting it ingrained in your head on the flight, or even listening back to yourself, which most of us don't do, which I think we should probably do more of. That's
pretty, I mean, I listen to my talks after I give them. I always do an audio recording of every talk that I give, and I always listen to it. I usually set up a video recorder. I have a Kodak ZI-8 camera that I usually set up in the back of the room. I get a wide shot. It's not great for like sharing my speaking because you don't get, you know, close in edited video, but I get a shot of the entire room. I watch the video and I listen to the audio after every talk I do now because it enables me to catch the places I make mistakes and to improve. If you feel like it's too overwhelming because there's too many mistakes or it's going to be too much to fix, just pick one thing that you're going to focus on as you review and say that, you know, the thing I most want to improve in my next talk is this one thing, and then only listen or watch for that one thing.
How would you advise somebody who, you know, has trouble hearing their own voice or even seeing themselves on film? I mean, a lot of people have that issue.
I mean, I've gotten a lot better about it. I used to hate my own voice. Oh my God, that's not my voice. Okay, well, I listened to my talks so often, I don't mind, you know, and now I'm to the point I recognize my voice on recordings and go, that is my voice. It really does sound like that. Although it's much more resonant and lovely in my head. I always think I sound like, you know, Cynthia, that I have that lovely voice. And it turns out that's not the voice that's coming out at all. It's a lot more nasal. And then my accent comes and goes. If I'm not watching it, my accent is back. You know, those are things that I got over by doing it, by listening to it. You know, that's the only way you're going to get used to something. You don't get used to anything by not doing it. So the only way to get used to something is by doing it. So if you're not used to your voice on recordings, listen to your voice on recordings. If you're not used to watching yourself on video, watch yourself on video. Watch it over and over. Treat it like a blooper reel. Don't try to change anything at first, but just get used to it. And the other thing is, I mean, that's just a get out of your own way, get over yourself kind of thing. You know, that's a suck it up moment. You have to watch it and do it and listen to it in order to use it as a tool to improve.
That's another thing that we're going to talk about in the session, in the event on the 30th, is those things about ourselves that sometimes we are a little reluctant to embrace. Our accents, you know, for me, there's things that I do on stage sometimes, but those are the things that make you uniquely you. Your accent, the way you talk, the things that you do, whether you're using gestures or not. And you know, instead of running away from it, start getting used to seeing yourself and embrace it, because at some point, those are going to be the things that, one, resonate with the audience, and two, event organizers are going to say, oh, that is so cool. I love the fact that you always do this thing in your talks, or you always bring tequila to your talk.
Not always, just SMTULSA. I have actually gotten gigs because of my accent. Back in the day when social media was the hot topic that I spoke on, I had on my speaker page all of my bona fides and all the things that make me a great speaker. But I also listed places that I had gone and speaking, and there was video of my talks online so that you could get a feel for how I spoke. I was told specifically by a group that booked me that they were, because they are from a rural area, and I mean rural, they have Indiana and Kentucky as part of their territory that they were serving. They said that it was between me and another gal that had social media and claimed to have good small town bona fides. And her talks, she's all in a suit, very polished down to the word. And you could tell that each presentation was of the kind that was not prepared, but was canned. And the guy said, I am sure that my audience is going to be able to relate to you much more than they're going to relate to the gal in the suit with her canned talk. And sure enough, I was able to go talk to those folks from Kentucky, and it was not a problem. They were not upset or put off by the fact that I had an Okie accent that sometimes is a Texas accent because I used to live in Texas.
Right. And that's one of the things we'll talk about is how you deal with those things that are uniquely you and how you can actually benefit from them and not so much shy away from them. So
and we're going to do that at the end of our deal. We're going to have a panel where you and I and the third person to be named later, which I know is someone you're selecting carefully out of our speaker lineup. But we're going to have the opportunity for us to do a little panel and actually address some of these questions about being who you are, because you have to bring the best of you in order to share that with the audience. And that's where you take it from being the kind of talk that anybody could deliver your talk to it's the kind of talk that reflects you specifically without being all about you. There's a difference between bringing the best of yourself and spending an hour talking about yourself.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So is there anything else that we can talk about in the practice? I know we kind of did the whole, preparing for and practice. We kind of led up to that. Is there anything else that you think is important in practicing for a talk or a speech?
Yeah, just to wrap it up, we've gone through that process of creating the slides, getting the wording on there, printing it out, going through it, saying it out loud. We're reading over it and rehearsing it in your head as many times as you can. I like to skim it the morning of, although I almost never actually do that. If I am the 7 a.m. speaker, then I am not going to make it through the talk that morning. So I used to try to actually do it out loud, that talk, but I would try to do it at least the night of. So, the night before I'm going to talk, then I'll go through it and read it then. And the other thing I do is, this is the other reason I love that paper copy, is I always take that to the room where I'm going to present, because it has happened that all the technology has failed. And by all, I mean all. I mean, like, all the technology has failed. Like we've all seen it. It's possible for everything to be completely gone, in which case you say, it's okay. I don't need any technology. I don't care that the power is out and there's no technology whatsoever. I have my paper copy. We'll just go ahead and do it right like this. And so you just share your talk anyway. And you would be surprised how easily it flows as you just turn each page and go through your talk that way. And I have gotten this close to having to do it recently, as a matter of fact, at a very high-tech venue that was very new. They had a major technology meltdown, and it was 2 minutes before my talk, before they had the tech up and running. Wow. Didn't bother me. I was ready. I knew I had my backup.
And I will say, from the organizer standpoint, that is valuable or invaluable, really, because if something's failing, and things do fail, technology does fail, presentation, slide, projectors, microphones, those kind of things really can hinder somebody's event. But if you are the type of speaker who can rebound from that and say, hey, it's not a problem, everybody pull up a chair, get closer, I'll walk around the room. And I know you do that quite a bit, where you can interact and be in the room and have your presentation printed out so that you can go forward regardless of the conditions of the technology. That's just invaluable from the organizer standpoint and from the audience, right? So because the audience is just going to sit there and wait. So you having practice, being prepared, knowing the information and how you want to present it is really a great tool to have. So I love that.
And if you would like to guarantee that you never get invited back to an event to ever speak again, be the speaker who freaks out about the tech meltdown. Be the speaker who freaks out because something's not going the way that you want, and get all wound up and bother the people who are trying to fix it. My firm policy is, if there is somebody who seems to be competent working on it, you leave them alone and you go talk to the audience until it's time for your talk. If you would like to ensure that you never get invited back, you get yourself up there and be a pain in the butt.
Amen to that. Unfortunately, I've not had to deal with that, but it is. If you are the person that's, like, hey, I can't speak unless my slides are up here. Well, then.
Oh God, is it going to happen? Are you going to get it? Is it okay? Are you getting it? Have you got it? Are you getting it? Can I help? Wait, no, you're doing it wrong. Wait. Nobody wants that. You're not helping anything. You're keying yourself up. You're bothering the people who are trying to fix it for you, and you are ensuring that people think poorly of you. Whereas if you go, I see you guys have this under control. I'm going to be over here doing my thing, and let me know when you either have it worked out, and if not, I've got it covered. If you can say that to the organizer, they'll be like, I like this person.
Yeah, you are golden, and you can come back at any time and they will pay whatever it costs.
And expect to receive a decent comment from that organizer about how easy you are to work with, which never hurts when you're trying to get another gig later. So having done the work of preparing, having practiced and knowing you could handle it, and having practiced in a way that makes sure you could handle anything that came up, puts you in the best position to perform the best for yourself, for the event organizer, and for that audience, because that's the whole purpose of being there, is to make something change for that audience.
Wow. I don't think we can say anything else to that.
Cheers.
Cheers to that, my friend. And look at this. We've gotten to the end of an hour, and wow, that's just miraculous. So, hey, thank you so much, Becky. And again, you guys, do not miss this opportunity to learn about professional speaking. Get your website, your landing page, we're
going to talk about websites, baby. Oh, that's on the list.
Get it on there. Get your landing page, your speaker reel. Get all of those things together, and also learn how to prepare and be better prepared for your talk, and just book tons and tons of gigs. And I can't wait to see what you do after you've been to this event and you get your speak on. All right, thanks, Becky. Say bye to everybody.
Thank you very much. Bye, everybody.
Okay.